All right, guys, welcome back to the channel. Today's video, we are going to build another rear differential. Last video, we straightened this differential housing. This video, we're going to set up the gears. We're going to change all the bearings out and get this thing ready to install it back in our 35 Chevy project car. So, hey, hit the thumbs up, subscribe to my channel. Trying to put some content out there that's entertaining and informational, a little bit of fun too. So let's get into it. All right, so first setup didn't work out. The piece of pipe is about that much too short. Isn't that the way we always end up? So you can see shims are there. I'm using my setup bearing to push this bearing up into place. It is pushing against it slightly, but I think we'll be okay. And we're just gonna keep going here until we get this bad boy seated down on there. You see it's just coming right along. Crazy little setup I've got going, but hey, it works. And that's what we're after, it's just that it works. And you can see the gap closes up, everything gets tight, and before we ruin anything, we're gonna back up. So there we go. And that should get that bearing pressed on. So next step, installing the housing. Crush sleeve, outer pinion, all that stuff. You see, it's on there. Everything rotates freely. I will pre-oil this bearing before I drop it in the housing. Everything gets a little 80-90 gear oil on it, just to make sure we're good. Got George out here. He is helping me with the scanning of all the parts to make sure they're good. All right, and then we have our crush sleeve. Slips up on the pinion, and our outer bearing goes on there as well. I do need to take a little gear oil and just give her a little shot through the rollers here. Roll it around on there, make sure you're lubed good, because I don't want to put them together dry. We do have to do rolling torque on this. So I just sit there and spin it around and around, guys, till you got oil or grease, or yeah, gear oil in the bearings. Slip that up on there, make sure our crush sleeve's still in place. And then you get to this point where, if it's tight, and it will not go up on there any further. Gonna put the pinion on, and we don't have very much room for our pinion nut to start. And everything is super close here, so I'm just gonna throw that in there. I don't have a seal in this yet. I'll wait till I get my everything set up before I put the seal on it. All right, so got my yoke all cleaned up. I ran a tap through the threads on this thing, primed it, painted it. Then I put my new seal in here, and I have the front part of that snout of the housing painted as well. I did put silicone here because I don't know if you guys have ever had this happen, but gear oil can seep past those splines, come out around the nut of this thing, and then it looks like you have a leaky pinion seal, but in fact it's leaking through the spline. So I don't like to have a ton of silicone wandering around in here, but this is one place that it definitely is going to help you. I've got to grab this gear oil and lube up my my seal surface, and I'm going to shoot just a little bit down there on that bearing, so again we're not putting anything together dry. All right, so now you can see we got that silicone pushed up inside of the splines all the way around. I'm going to have to put my washer down on here. One thing about this kit, it didn't come with a new washer, so drop that on, then Loctite on the nut, and then we have to set the pinion bearing preload, or crush the crush sleeve. So here we go. Set this rotational torque that's used to measure our preload on our bearings here. We got our fancy little torque wrench, and I put it on. I have the little dial set so it'll stay. I go ahead and roll this thing. Just too much stuff on the bench here. Roll it around. We're like right at that 25 inch-pound mark. So we go back, zero that, put it on here, and turn this diff around 1 full revolution. Come back, and yeah, I mean, I might be 26, somewhere in there. That's gonna be good. You have 25 inch-pounds is what they recommend for new bearings in this rolling resistance force. So you just have to roll it even. The first time I kind of sped up a little bit and it affected the reading. So at any rate, we got that. That sets your preload here, so there's no play in this. And right now, there's no carrier in it either, see? So I did throw some gear oil off on those bearings, but now it's time to take our carrier over there. I've got right and left separated with my shims and everything. And I'll get it in there and we'll set up and show you what the backlash looks like. All right, so use my high-tech measuring system of going down here with my caliper. That's the middle of your carrier bearing, or the center of the axle. That's where you're supposed to measure the pinion depth from. Then we'll zero it there, and then we come off and we measure to the head of the pinion and wiggle it back and forth so that we try to get a true measurement there. And I say 525, the pinion is stamped 529. So yeah, we're somewhat in the ballpark. It worked good. It had a decent gear pattern in the center of the ring gear with this setup, with my setup bearings. So we're going to go ahead and so, all right, guys, here we are. We're set up to do the backlash. I played with this last night quite a bit, and I unfortunately didn't film it, but getting this set up right to left, the closer you move the ring gear toward the pinion, so the more shims you put here, the less backlash you have. The more you move this direction, the more backlash you have. And what I came up with last night, I wrote it down right here. So when I subtract 5 thousandths from the ring gear side and add it to the other side of the carrier, that added about 3 thousandths of backlash. So it's good if you can do that, because every time you have to make a change, you got to pull this carrier out, and you have to put enough shims in to preload these bearings. You don't want to have it where there's no preload and the thing's loosens up and it walks around on you. But you can see I've got this thing zeroed and we're going backwards here, but we've got about 10 thousandths on the backlash reading there. My gear pattern is decent. It's kind of in the middle. It's a little far in, but I can't change it. I've tried several things. And then this side, we're wiping right across the middle of the tooth. So, hey, we're going to call the setup good on this differential. All I've got to do is torque those caps down and make sure they're torqued to the 65 pounds. And then we got to slide the axle bearings in. The axle's in as 1.5 inch socket. And oh, flat piece. Inch-and-a-half socket. Okay. Gear oil, because nothing goes together dry. All right, that side, a success. And the only tip I have is when you drive the seal in, you don't have to drive it up against the bearing. I just barely drive it inside of this little beveled area so that we're good there. And I do make sure I get that gear oil and I put that all around the lip of that seal. I'll come in. I just ordered these. I didn't intentionally buy Yukon, it's just what came. You just have to make sure you get the right ones, because if you don't have the right bearings, you're going to have to reorder them, and that's never any fun. They do have them packaged really nice. And again, first part to go in is our roller bearing. These are Koyo. So it could orient this so we could see the part number from the outside. I don't really plan on ever having to take it back apart, but you never know. And we just drive this in until we hear the little change of the sound. Just about there. Yeah, socket's bouncing off of it. It's driven in all the way. Now, I could put my gear oil in there before I put my seal in it, just in the roller part of the bearing. My jug is just about dry here. There we go. All right, guys, so we did get this diff all put together. Everything is set up properly, comes into spec nice, and you can see next video we're going to have the installation how-to on these disc brakes here, how to get them set up and all the brake lines ready so that we're able to drop this rear diff back in between the frame rails of our 35 Chevy. So, hey, if you like the content, give it a thumbs up. Please go ahead and subscribe to the channel. Make sure your post notifications are on, and we'll catch you on the next one.